This could be a quick meeting, partner. All right, Chris, let's go. Motion to open. I make a motion, we open the meeting. Second, Mr. Cathcart. Second. Mr. Demon, open and cast.
With first, Mr. Cathcart.
Yes.
Okay, we'll take the roll call. Mr. Fernandez,
I'm here.
Mr. Fitros,
Here.
Mr. Gomes,
Present.
Dr. Martinez,
Here.
Mrs. O'Neill,
Mary's here.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Here.
Mr. Rosselli,
Here.
Mr. Cathcart,
Here.
and President Gibbons.
Here. Flag salute, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I didn't put your hand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you, Mary.
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Ridgefield Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Bergen Record, Municipal Building, Board of Education offices, and district website. Public participation instructions. Public participation will be conducted both in person and virtually through Zoom. All public will be muted throughout the meeting. Public participation comments are limited to 5 minutes. The public will be able to both speak and be seen by the board when participating virtually or telephonically via Zoom. Individuals participating virtually that wish to make comments during public participation will need to raise their hand by clicking the blue hand icon at the bottom of the Zoom window. Individuals participating by telephone that wish to make comments during public participation will need to hit *9 on their telephone to raise their hand. The Business Administrator Board Secretary will then unmute individuals one at a time to speak in the order that their hand was raised.
Thank you. Can we move minutes?
Yes, we do, November 17th, executive session and public session.
Thank you. What is this actually? Oh, it's the packet? Oh. Okay. Sorry, do we have any communications?
What about a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to vote.
Yes,
November 17th.
thank you, trustee Peterman.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Fitros,
Yes.
Mr. Gomes, Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
I am an abstention because I was not present at last meeting. This is the minutes, correct?
yes.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Thaman,
Yes.
Mr. Rosselli,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
and President Gibbons.
Yes.
This is part of the movement of shoe drops.
Committee reports, faculty and programs, trustee Rodriguez.
Sure.
Thank you.
On December 13, 2021 at 5:30, the Faculties and Programs Committee met. All members were in attendance. The agenda was provided by Acting Superintendent Dr. Haynes, and we discussed P 142, which is on today's agenda, and it will be paid from the Title I or ESSER, CRRSA, ARP funds. We discussed to give more option to parents, and then also possibly having more educators and people apply. The programs will occur after school or before school. That's it.
Thank you, trustee. Policy, trustee O'Neill?
The policy committee met on Monday, December 13th. We discussed the second reading of policies that are on this agenda and teacher and staff dress codes. In attendance were myself, Dr. Haynes, Mr. Gibbons, Mr. Gomez, Dr. Martinez, and Belinda Rodriguez.
Thank you, trustee. Finance, trustee Fernandez?
Thank you, trustee, President Gibbons. The Finance and Insurance Committee did not meet, but in lieu of that, I did ask some pretty thorough questions about the agenda items, which I did share with each committee member. The answers from Carrie Grabstein and Dr. Haynes. That is all.
Thank you, trustee. Personnel, trustee Timmy? Buildings and grounds?
There's no actual report. I just wanted that there's a new project for Challenger Drive, and I will be attending the planning board meetings and keep the board and the public informed.
Thank you. Trustee Martinez, anything from social justice?
We had originally planned to have a meeting right before Thanksgiving, which the meeting was postponed. Dr. Haynes might be able to provide an update on a new tentative date for a meeting, social justice meeting.
Thank you, trustee. Dr. Haynes, the superintendent's report. Oh, I apologize. Thank you. Negotiations.
Yeah, we met with the office yesterday, continue to work towards a deal, hopefully, we'll be meeting with them at the end of January. And we did come to an agreement with the office.
Thank you, trustee. I apologize. Superintendent's report, please, Dr. Haynes.
Sure. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to start the superintendent report as I usually do by inviting Nurse Erin or elevating Nurse Erin into the meeting. Thank you, Mrs. Kelly, for facilitating that. Nurse Erin and I have had many discussions over the past 3 days because of the COVID, as Nurse Erin will talk about today.
I am trying. Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, we can hear
Yes.
you. Can't
For
see
some
you.
reason, my camera is not working. I don't know why. Hold on one second. There we go. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Like Dr. Haynes said, we have been in contact very frequently during school hours, after school hours. It's been a busy couple of weeks. Just wanted to start off with saying that I just received the latest update of COVID cases in the village of Ridgefield Park, and it is a little bit alarming. Just a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we had 9 positive COVID cases in a week. Last 2 weeks ago was 21 cases, and this past week we've hit a high of 28 cases in a week. We haven't seen numbers like that since back in March. And when I looked back into last December, it was a little similar to last December that we're seeing these high numbers after our first holiday. Our total number to date in the village, and just as a reminder, this is from the beginning of COVID when it started, is 1,616 positive cases in the village of Ridgefield Park. The activity level in the county and across the state has gone from yellow to orange. That means that the Cali score has increased to 3. I checked in on the positivity rate, and that's 5.69. And what that means is that 5.69% of all PCR tests that are reported over 7 days are positive. We were seeing low numbers in the 1s, 2s, and 3s, and now we're almost close to 6%. We're continuing to follow all the guidelines that have been set forth by the health department. We follow HARP, who also gets their guidelines from the New Jersey Department of Health, along with the CDC. There has been one big change that's come with the orange level of the Cali score is our quarantine period. And just wanted to kind of get everybody to understand what it means to be a close contact. So according to our health department, a close contact is somebody who's been within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period of somebody who has tested positive. Just so everybody knows that we considered lab tests as positive. There's a new thing about home testing, and I think they're great for a quick answer, but we can't accept those results. The county will not allow us to. So if somebody calls and tells me they've tested positive at an at-home test, I then tell them that they need to go and have a PCR test done, just so it's confirmed, and then it is reported through the county and they're able to track the case also. So anybody that's within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more of a positive case is then identified as a close contact. If that individual that's identified as a close contact is vaccinated, they're not required to quarantine. And I know there's a little discrepancy in there, but this is the guidelines that we're following. This is what we're being told. So if they are vaccinated, they don't need to quarantine. We do recommend that they self-monitor for symptoms, get tested 5 days after the exposure, continue to wear your mask, be very careful. And if any time during that period you develop symptoms, we're asking students and staff to stay home and contact their building nurses immediately. If you're unvaccinated, you are then required to quarantine for 14 days from your last exposure. Originally, a few months ago, it was actually 14 days. Then it went to 10 days and they were allowing you to test out after 7 days. That is no longer acceptable because of the increase of cases. You must quarantine for 14 days. There's no way around it. You can't test out during it. It's mandatory. That is what our school is following. And the belief is that anywhere between day 1 and day 14, there's a possibility that somebody can test positive for COVID. There is an exclusion that is set forth by HARP, our health department. And what it says is, a close contact is excluded when they are within 3 to 6 feet of an infected student if both the infected student and the exposed student are properly and consistently wearing well-fitted masks. This only applies to students. So if your child is sitting next to a student in a classroom within 3 to 6 feet, and they're both wearing their mask properly, we are not requiring the exposed student to quarantine. But if that child is sitting with the positive case at lunch or somewhere else in the building and they're not masked or not wearing their mask properly, then they are required to quarantine for 14 days. Each building is seeing a very big influx of illnesses, not just COVID cases. We are seeing flu cases, common colds, RSV. We're seeing just about everything at this point. So we're asking again, like I ask every month, for parents to please work with us, because if you don't do the right thing at home, it makes it very difficult in the school. So we're asking, if your child is not feeling well, and please, every Sunday a letter goes out with the symptoms, please review it. A few symptoms have been added over the past couple weeks. So just review it again. We're seeing symptoms of COVID cases, headaches, sore throats. It's not just the cough anymore. It's not just the fever anymore. Some of them are nauseous and have vomiting. Some of them just have a simple sore throat, just a headache. Things that we didn't think were COVID are being presented to us. And then within 24, 48 hours, these kids are testing positive for COVID. It's spreading amongst the children. It's spreading amongst the community. And we're just asking for everybody to kind of buckle down a little bit and stay safe and do the right thing. You're not feeling well, your kid's not feeling well, stay home and notify us. Let us make the decision whether you should send your child in or not. Please don't send them in, and then I have to call you a few hours later because your child doesn't feel good and should have never been in the building that day. Does anybody have any questions so far? I think somebody's raising their hand. I think it's Dr. Martinez. There you are.
You have good eyes.
I just know where you're sitting. I couldn't see your face, but I knew you were sitting there.
and I've talked to Dr. Haynes on occasion about this topic, but I think one of the problems is that if you keep your kid home and they don't have COVID, they're not entitled to remote instruction.
They're not entitled to remote instruction, correct, unless you are a positive COVID case or you have been an exposure. But that exposure is not just an exposure in school. We're pushing that out within the home too. So if somebody at home is tested positive, we are then giving you that child the right to remote learning or follow along learning, depends on which, level of school you're in, what they
Yes,
classify it as.
I'm talking about the kids who either don't get tested or don't turn up positive. We're almost incentivizing parents to send their kids to school with symptoms because they're going to get less instruction if the parent thinks it's allergies in the fall or spring, or if it's they just sniffles like that happen every winter. I feel like we're almost incentivizing parents to send kids to school sick if they have a gut feeling it's not COVID.
The problem with that, Dr. Martinez, is that what you call the seasonal allergies is what I hear from parents probably every single day. And then I get a follow-up call the next day that their child is positive and now has exposed 15 kids in the school. So the problem is everybody seems to be pushing off these symptoms to it's just allergies. And we can't really rely on these kids, to be honest. The kid's going to tell us every other week that they're not feeling well and they're going to stay home a few days to get remote learning. They do have the option to follow along, as in Google Classroom. And all of these days that are related to illnesses that we are requesting your child to be tested for are being excused. We're being extremely lenient with the excusing of absences. If we are telling you your child is having symptoms and we tell them to stay home, they have to stay home and get tested, and we're excusing them. Before COVID and your child didn't feel good, we asked you to keep your kids home and there was no option for follow along. So I know that parents are frustrated that they feel that their kids are falling behind, but if your kid is really sick and they're home because they're not feeling well, following along online might not be the best option for them.
The other question I have is could you speak to the rationale behind kids that are vaccinated not having to quarantine and kids that are not vaccinated having to quarantine, if they can both transmit?
Dr. Martinez, I just follow the guidelines, and I had spoken to a parent today. I have personal opinions about things. You have personal opinions about things. I don't put my opinions into it. I just follow what we're being told. I don't know what the rationale is. The belief is that the unvaccinated are spreading it faster. We don't know for sure if you are fully vaccinated, if you are spreading it. Are people getting boosters? Have you been vaccinated more than 6 months ago? There's just so much that goes into it. I couldn't give you a concrete answer on that. I wish I could, because if that was the case, I probably could solve a lot of these problems that are going on in the district. But we're just following the guidelines that we're being given.
I hope they put you in charge then.
Thank you.
Correct me if
Anybody else have any questions?
correct me if I'm wrong. There is a free testing site in Holy Name Hospital, I believe, as well, correct? That people can.
So as far as free goes, there's a little question about it. So I've heard from some people that they say it's not free. I don't know entirely if that's true. So when you go to pre-register for Holy Name Hospital, there's a questionnaire that you have to fill out. There's information on there for insurance. You have insurance, you input the information. I don't believe they're billing you, but I've been giving some suggestions to our staff and our students and parents. There is a place in Paramus that we know for sure. It's called MedRight. It's on Route 17. It's on 17 South in Paramus. It took over one of those abandoned storefronts, and they do testing there. I have several staff members that are unvaccinated that use that on a weekly basis. And just as a key point is those unvaccinated staff members, which only I think is about 5 or 6% of our staff, are now required to get tested twice a week because we have now increased the Cali score in the orange level. There are several places. The problem now is that these places are being, if you drive past a city MD in an urgent care, people are standing out line, 20, 25 people standing on line, 3-4 hour waits to get COVID tests. We try our best, and I'm always asking people where they're going and the process of it. So reach out to your nurses if you need some advice. If you don't have insurance and you're looking for COVID tests, we will find you a place to go.
Thank you, Nurse Aaron.
You're welcome.
Yes, any parents that have any questions could ask that question or make a statement when we have citizens' comments off agenda items. And you could actually, there's a sign-in sheet. You're welcome to do that. The only thing I'm going to ask tonight is when we have comments, we'll do 5 in person and 5 online so that everybody gets an equal opportunity. And then we'll go back to in person as well.
If there's no other questions, I just want to finish up with just letting everybody know that the nurses are busy and we do get your messages, and just leave us a message. If you have a question or a concern and there's something that we can help you with, just reach out to us. We will get back to you, we promise. But the offices are extremely, extremely busy, especially with the holiday season coming, and we're trying to make the right decisions, which sometimes are hard. And parents, I understand, get a little frustrated, but we're trying our best and doing the best that we can and just trying to keep the kids safe. And I just want everybody to remember that is our purpose there, is to keep all the students and the staff as safe as we possibly can.
Thank you, Nurse Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nurse Aaron.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank you again, Nurse Aaron, and thank you to all the nurses, especially over the past 2 weeks, who have been spending, as you said, an inordinate amount of time in our community helping children. Based on what Nurse Aaron said, I will be sending out a memo on Friday ahead of the holidays, and I'm going to read you just the last part of that memo as a reminder of everything Nurse Aaron said, and thinking about this is a very fluid process right now, where HART changes guidelines depending on what our COVID levels are. And as we look to beyond the new year, maybe some other practices that we might have to put into place based on our COVID levels. So we'll continue to follow our existing COVID practices in school, and we ask you to remain cautious and follow CDC and our district HARP guidelines. If you notice any symptoms with your children, please keep them home and consider testing them. As I'll state again in a Friday memo, my goal with writing today is not to create alarm, but instead create an awareness and allow families to make plans in the event of a COVID-related disruption. So you'll expect to receive that in your inbox on Friday. So thinking about being in person, we had so many wonderful holiday presentations this year, and two of my favorite, I think many of the board members and many of our learning community attended, were the middle school choir and band concert and the high school band and choir concert. And I would love to have invited them in. I'm hoping in the future that they get to come in person and present some of their performances, because there's nothing better in a board meeting, in my mind, than live student performances. Because we do have elevated levels of COVID, however, it was difficult to bring the entire band and chorus here. So I'd like to believe that as a supporter of the arts, as I am and as board members are and the community is, that through the music performances, we share a common bond, that we share stories about our humanity. And we have so much to be thankful for in our high school and middle school performers. So I'm going to play a few excerpts on my computers of those performers. Bear with me a second while I share a screen.
As well, I've had some comments from the public. If someone can't hear online, please write in the chat and we'll be able to maybe remedy that.
That's good. And I'm going to jump around a little bit. The students went ahead actually and created their own video, and I'll play some excerpts of that video. And bear with me a second. I'm going to try that again so I can get volume going.
You having technical difficulties?
Thanks for your patience. Okay, that should work pretty well. I click share. That's better. And a skip, because there's a lot of this. I think you'll still get to see and enjoy a lot of it. So just watching that again reminds me, sitting in the theater, listening to the teachers say, these students haven't been in person for almost 2 years. So for them to come together and make music the way they did, there were just some wonderfully magical moments during the performance where you were just like, I was blown out of my seat listening to the wall of sound that came from the stage and watching the enjoyment that our students had of getting together and collaborating and making music together. If you want to applaud them again, I applauded them, and everybody who's listening at home, I hope you got to enjoy and appreciate a little bit of the concert, a little bit of taste of it. So thank you again. That is the end of my superintendent report.
Thank you.
Is this video going to be posted anywhere on the website?
Yeah, so funny enough, Dr. Martinez just elbowed me and said, hey, are we posting it on the website? So I think that would be fine. I'll work with Mrs. Cavens and Mrs. Thiemann to go ahead and do that. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a great night. And you can't have to sing along to all these songs. So that concludes the superintendent's report. Mr. Demikoff, the monitor's report.
Okay, I'll be quick. At prior meetings, at the request of the public, I stated that I would inform the public of the updated legal costs related to the pending litigation with Dr. Bender. We have not received the November billing from the board's attorney, so the legal cost from the board's attorney remains at $22,208.15. The district has received billing from the state monitor's attorney for services through November for $598.50, bringing the total legal bills to date for the pending litigation with Dr. Bender to $22,806.65. No further comments.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to open up citizens' comments on agenda items. Anything that's on the agenda, you could please make a statement about if you'd like. I haven't received the sign-in sheet yet. Just give us a second. Thank you. What is that? Thank you. Ed DeSantis. Please state your address for the public.
No problem. Can you hear me through this?
And again, reminder, everybody at home, if you can't hear us, just let us know in the chat. Try again now, Mr. DeSantis.
That's better. Right. Ed DeSantis, 15 Homestead Place, Ridgefield Park. Resolution FP 82. I presume most of these policy changes are mandated. Just curious, is the change in the dress code for students or teachers?
The change in the dress code is for faculty.
The faculty.
Yes.
Okay, just stepped up the. Okay. On a positive note, good to see a lot of grants received on the agenda. There's multiple resolutions, so I'm happy to see that. During the part of the board reports, I didn't hear the negotiations report. Briefly, could I couldn't physically hear it. Mhm. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Susan DeSantis. Good evening. Good evening.
PF, FP 85. And I've noticed other, as far as I know, a lame duck board can't bind the new board. And you've been creating positions and contracts. I mean, things that normally go forward, is okay, but how are you doing this when you're a lame duck board, that you're creating these positions and negotiating and signing contracts?
Well, all bargaining agreements want to complete their contract. That goes without saying. And also, anything that's added to the agenda is a needed item that's recommended by administration.
Yes, but you're a lame duck board and you're not supposed to be creating positions and voting on and binding a new board.
Is there a question, Mrs. DeSantis?
That's my question. Why are you doing it when it's not permitted?
Yeah, Mrs. Wright, is there a provision that says that a lame duck board can't make?
No, the board can continue to make determinations and continue to conduct its business. The Commissioner of Education has provided. The law is not the same as it was previously when the lame duck period for a board was a very short period. With boards of education who have their elections in November and the board does not reorganize until January, it's too long of a period of time for boards not to take action. So the board is permitted to take these actions.
So they're permitted to create new positions and bind the new board is what you're telling me?
Correct.
Can you send me that in writing?
I'm the board's attorney, Ms. DeSantis, not yours. But thanks for your question.
Requested. P-137. Could you tell me what her qualifications are to fulfill this position?
I know you guys are working on the timer as well, so. You have about a minute and a half, Mr. DeSantis.
I think that was just a spelling correction, correct?
Could you repeat the question?
I would like to know what her qualifications are to fulfill this position.
This position was a posted position. There were candidates who applied for this position. There was an interview committee set up for the position. And out of the committee, she was the chosen candidate to be appointed to this position.
That doesn't answer my question.
Does the person have qualifications?
Great. Mrs. DeSantis, feel free to post that question on the website and I will answer it.
Well, I doubt you will, but okay.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a brief pause while we get the timer going.
Chris, I have, President Gibbons, I have a question. The new business item that we're adding, at what point will the public be able to make comments about that item since it hasn't been posted?
It's the new business item. It's a new business item
The new business item for finance? Is that what you're talking about?
for finance.
Does the public not get a chance to react to that item?
When we get, yeah, maybe you could ask Gary that question. It's
Carrie, would you be able to answer that question?
So the board agenda is set in the order as determined by the board president. So if it's on, something is coming up on new business, I see on your agenda that that's off. That's after the citizens' comments. Was that your question?
That answers the question, yes.
thank you.
Okay.
There's no, I guess. The public will not be able to comment on that item.
So there's nothing, there is nothing unlawful about the board putting new business on after the public comment period at your meeting.
Understood.
We didn't need a moment for the timer. I'll just, sorry.
Who's next?
Unless, I could call John Rafferty. We just give us a moment to get the timer ready. You can come up and we have it. We have it. Whenever you're ready, sir. We have a temporary clock. This will come up.
Going through the agenda for tonight's meeting, I see that the transportation overtime was cut exactly in half from $11,000 to $5,500. Kudos to that. Has anyone questioned how that happened?
Yes.
It was, what I was told was that it was a shorter month. But we're actually going to be looking into a
There were
system.
2 less school days, that's
There were
correct.
2 less school days, but yeah, I'm still looking into why that is and why the overtime, I noticed that it was much less, but we're talking about some different options for tracking drivers and for routing and for student attendance.
Absolutely.
So
That word
that's-
is accountability. You come to a board meeting, you raise hell about it, you turn around the next month, it's in half. So just think about that, okay? Accountability, accountability. You don't look at your money, you look at your hours, total hours worked. Now, there's two more days off in November than there are in October. And did you start the new routes yet? The new stops? That they were, last meeting, they were talking about doing 2 additional stops, out-of-town stops.
Were they talking? Oh, you're talking about the jointure
Yes.
agreements? You know what, I don't believe so. I know that we have a joint agreement with Little Ferry and with Leonia, but that is not, it's not a revenue generating agreement. So with Teaneck and Dumont, I'm not exactly sure, but I can find that out for you.
Okay, very good, because that's quite a bit of money we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I'm just going to take a brief moment. I'm sorry, do we have any online, Ms. Locono? Okay, I'm gonna, no, you're right. Thank you. I kill all my plants, so I have something. I just wanted to make a few comments. Trustee Mary O'Neill, thank you for your years of service to the community. Your advice was stellar and appreciated. We know you'll continue your community service and your help to the village in any way possible. Thank you so much, Mary. Of course.
Just want to thank everybody for this. It was very unexpected and I don't do really well on the spot with but I just wanted to thank everyone for the time. It was a pleasure working with everybody. And yes, I'll continue to do community service and I'll still be here. I'll still be around, but I just wanted to thank everyone and
Thank you so much, Mary. And Trustee Robert Deeman, your service for over 30 years is amazing. Your mental fortitude and strength is stellar. From these years of service, you've given great advice and your expertise through the ups and downs of this village. We know you'll continue your community service, and your service to us as a board member is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, Trustee Deeman, for all of your service. Thank you, Trustee. And thank you both again for all you've done for our community. We're now going to move on, unless, does anybody?
Anybody want?
Is it open?
Yeah, if anybody would like to say anything, they could at the moment, of course.
No, I mean, are you sure that it's open? Something, is it open?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, President Gibbons. Also like to take this opportunity to personally thank 2 board members for their ongoing leadership, service, and support to our community. I'd like to thank Mary O'Neill and Bob Deeman for their selfless commitment to the Board of Education. Your volunteerism during your term is appreciated. I thank you so much, Bob, your 30 years of service. You have exemplified yourself as someone that has the concept of giving back to its highest level, and I personally want to thank you for that. Mary, thank you for your time and your volunteerism as well. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for that.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to resolutions. Thank you both again. Trustee Rodriguez, could you please move faculty and programs?
Trustee Britt, before you do that, I have to scratch FP number 84 because of the job description. So that's taken out. Thank you. FP 84 is
okay.
scratched.
Is he removing?
I so move FP 80 through FP 83 and FP 85.
Second.
Are there any questions on faculty and programs, resolution 80 to 85? Seeing none, Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Theman,
Yes.
Mr. Verselli,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
and President Gibbons.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Buildings and grounds,
I
trustee
move
Cath.
PG 10.
Are there any questions on the buildings and grounds resolution BG 10? Seeing none. Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Theman,
Yes.
Mr. Verselli,
Yes.
and President Gibbons.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Finance and insurance, trustee Fernandez.
Thank you, President Gibbons. At this time, I'd like to move finance and insurance FI 138 to 155.
Are there any questions on finance and insurance FI 138 to FI 155? Seeing none, Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros,
Yes.
Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes to all. I'm an abstention on FI 141.
Mr. Theman,
Yes.
Mr. Verselli,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes and all, but I'll be an abstention on 141.
and President Gibbons.
Yes. Thank you. CR 9. Use of facilities.
I'll second that.
Who was the second? Is it Dr. Martinez or who seconded?
Trustee Fernandez.
Are there any questions on CR 9? Seeing none, President Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Theman,
Yes.
Mr. Verselli,
Yes.
and Mr. Cathcart.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Personnel, trustee Theman.
P 128 and P 144. I so move.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
P 128 and 144.
And who seconded?
I did.
Are there any questions on personnel 128 to 144?
I have a question on P 131. I'm not sure we can discuss it in public. Is there a specific reason why it was suspension without P?
Yes, Mrs. Rodriguez, you and I had this conversation a week ago, Monday, and it was
Mhm.
followed up by another conversation about 3 days ago, the opportunity. And as I stated
We only
then,
discussed it once.
and as I stated then, we are not allowed to discuss personnel or human resources issues in public.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes to all except P 131, where I will be abstaining.
Mrs. O'Neill,
Yes to all except I am abstaining on number 131.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes to all, and I'm a no on P 131.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
and President Gibbons.
Yes.
I'm not sure if this passes. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get this. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Rosselli
Yes.
and Mr. Phytros.
Thank you. And that concludes resolutions. We're going to begin with citizens' comments off agenda items. Oh, I'm sorry. New business will be after unfinished business. So let me just get the sign-in sheet.
While he's taking a minute to get the sign-in sheet, Mrs. DeSantis, you asked a question about qualifications for P 137. It reminded me, we had a job posting for that. It was posted, I believe, at the last meeting. The title of that is called Assistant to the Director of Curriculum Instruction Operations. And there was a job goal along with qualifications listed in that job posting. It goes on for about a page and a half. It lists all the qualifications for that job.
We'll just get a second to start the timer. And okay, so Mrs. Reber? And again, if you can't hear us online, just please let us know. You're going to be limited to 5 minutes, and we have a hard stop on an hour. If we don't get to comments, then you can come back and ask them online as well, and they'll be answered. Good evening.
Wait, I had a quick comment. My name is Luani River. I live in 133 Hudson Avenue. Quick comment on the protocol for the COVID positive students. Harvard University has the protocol of testing twice weekly the vaccinated. DOVAX, they test 3 times a week. So what am I saying? If your student is vaccinated, he is not or she is not free of getting COVID and transmitting COVID. So whatever protocol is happening right now, it is a faulty protocol. So just to clarify that, this is, I can actually send you later on the article with Harvard and their testing protocols. Twice weekly, the vaccinated, we have to do it. If you're gonna follow what the CDC say. So I'm here, you probably heard me last time. I am worried about the mandate, the vaccine mandate, which is not here yet, but New York City already pretty much is about to impose it. Any children that wants to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art needs to show proof of vaccination 5 or older. So we're having children already being vaccinated. This vaccine that is still not disclosed, the components of this vaccine. So I am not anti-vaccine. My kids are being vaccinated. Some of my family members have been vaccinated, some are not. Since they took the vaccine, it has been my purpose to look for medical ways to help them detox or decrease the damage the vaccine is doing to them, because it is doing to them. Vaccine is doing damage, and I'll explain you why. I also wanted to share with you that the government has not been honest with us. The healthcare system and the political system has not been honest with all of you, especially the vaccinated. I I have an article and I gave out some articles for the board to have. I have these three. First article, and I'm going to say something bold that nobody has heard. COVID vaccines, quote from the article, it actually is a medical article, not just from Google or for New York Times. It's a PubMed article. COVID vaccines may worsen COVID-19 disease via antibody-dependent enhancement. This risk is sufficiently obscured in clinical trial protocols and consent forms for ongoing COVID vaccine trials that adequate patient comprehension of this risk is unlikely to occur. So what is it saying? That if you take the COVID vaccine, there is a risk that next time you get COVID vaccine, you will show worse symptoms. Now, I am sure, because I know people that took the vaccine, they give you a paper to sign. Nobody takes the time to really tell you, this is a real risk. For all of you that have been vaccinated that I'm sure were not informed, once you get COVID again, and you will get it again, you will have worse symptoms from this disease. This was no honesty. This is not transparent. Second point, American pharmaceutical giant Pfizer and its subsidiary Pharmacy and Option Company have agreed to pay $2.3 billion, the largest healthcare fraud settlement in the history of the Department of Justice, to resolve criminal and civil liability arising from the illegal promotion of certain pharmaceuticals products the Justice Department announced. So we are trusting Pfizer, the vaccine that has been fined the highest amount of money for being a crook company, trying to buy doctors, giving them bribes so they can prescribe the medication, $2.3 billion. So this company is the one behind our children's vaccine. This is what I'm saying. When the nurse says, this vaccine is wonderful, this is not a medical phrase. You're supposed to say, this is the risk that the vaccine brings. This is the company that makes the vaccine. Let's use science, let's use medical expressions. The last thing, the FDA, which is responsible for protecting the public health by assuring the safety, effectiveness, quality, and security of human and veterinary drugs, vaccines, and other biological products and medical devices. Yes, this company, which is the company now is a government agency, the FDA, who is supposed to protect us. The FDA is protecting Pfizer by requesting that their trial data, not the patent, they don't have to record the patent, but the trial data for these vaccines, they can keep it hidden for 55 up to 75 years. So this vaccine that they announced is safe, take it. No, they haven't told you the whole truth. They didn't tell you, they didn't tell me. I found out about this article May this year. This vaccine started happening with the healthcare, then the government went after the teachers and after the military and the police department. Because you guys have unions and they use that it's free, take it. All the teachers take it is free. Did they tell you that you had a risk that your disease would get worse? They didn't. So I have the articles, I gave it to the board. I have articles written down. You guys can check them. We have to question this. The political leaders, the healthcare leadership is not being honest with you or with us. Just a warning for our children.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Susan DeSantis?
Mr. Gibbons, you wrote a letter to the mayor and commissioners.
Yes.
I would like to know how it got from a draft onto board office letterhead.
It was a response that we made after the commissioner's response, and that's what was requested and was given.
That's not the question I asked you. I asked you how the draft got on board office letterhead.
I got advisement from our legal counsel the whole way, and I stand by the statements made.
So you're telling that the attorney told you to put it on board office letterhead and send it out for the Board of Education? Did the board members know about this letter? Did they approve of this letter?
Absolutely.
A letter of reprimand to the mayor and commissioners
It was approved, yes.
for asking Mr. Demikoff to overturn your decision? It was board approved, you're saying?
It was written to the commissioner's office in response to their response.
do your fellow board members know about this letter that you were representing them in this way as a reprimand to the mayor and commissioners for asking the monitor to overturn your decision?
The board knew about the letter, yes.
Is that true? Did you all know about the letter?
Yes.
Well, apparently Ricardo Martinez didn't know about.
I heard rumors that there was a letter in June, I guess, but I have not seen or know that part of a letter to the commissioners. And I didn't sign a letter either.
I
Well, at
signed the
least you
letter.
didn't lie. Okay, my second question is, you had a meeting on October 4th specifically to discuss the fiscal monitor. I would like to know if you riced him.
So I'm just gonna jump in here, as Ms. DeSantis knows from her communications with the custodian of records. The board is not going to answer questions about what rice notices were sent out to employees. That information is confidential.
Mr. Demikoff, were you riced for the October 4th meeting? Your mic isn't turned on, or you can't hear you.
No, I was not.
Thank you. Has Dr. Bender been riced every time she's been spoken about in executive?
As our
session?
attorney commented, we will not comment on who was riced and who was not riced.
Have you talked about Dr. Bender in executive session since you sent her home? Because I will ask her if she was riced.
We will
Ms.
not comment.
DeSantis, you are certainly welcome to ask Dr. Bender any questions, and if she wants to answer them, she can. The confidentiality belongs to her, but I'm gonna recommend that the board not respond.
Are you going to tell me that you're not going to tell me whether she was discussed in executive session or not?
No, I'm not.
We cannot discuss. Session.
When executive session minutes are publicly available, then you have the right to Oprah them. Otherwise, I'm going to recommend that the board not answer.
Dr. Martinez, can I ask you if she was discussed in executive session?
I'm going to recommend Dr. Martinez, as a member of the board, not respond to those questions.
Follow the attorney's advice.
Okay, Christina Ramos was asking about the funding that went to needy families, and you said it was being investigated. What was the result of your investigation, Dr. Haynes?
That investigation is still ongoing. We're reaching out to state officials at the state level and waiting for responses and continuing to investigate. So the investigation is ongoing and open.
Well, the state didn't get the information, and I'd like to know if the person who, it used to be Mary Kane's job, so I assume it's Dave's daughter's job now. Did she send it?
The investigation is open and ongoing. I'm not going to speak about individuals.
Well, it's not an individual, that's a position. Did she drop the ball?
We'll not discuss personnel matters, and I'm sorry, ma'am, your time is up. Thank you for your comments. Ed DeSantis.
Ed DeSantis, 15 Homestead Place. An initial comment, if there is a new business item on the agenda and public comments closed, to the best of my knowledge, any new business item goes on the agenda has to either be given out to the public or read. If you haven't typed it up to, and whether the board attorney does that or the board president does that, doesn't matter. And then people can comment, you don't have to answer. But any resolution that goes on the agenda, new, old, or indifferent, has to be open to public comment. Moving on from that, it's pleased that the board and Mrs. Wright clarified, the rules have changed about a lame duck board because it is a long period. So the rules change, So it's good that one contract gets resolved and another it's good to get the contract solved, that everybody's mutually happy, hopefully, and the staff administrators are happy with the contracts, and the board is happy with the contracts as they're resolved. The question is, the negotiation committee, that's Mr. Verselli, and who else is on the negotiation committee? Okay,
That's posted online.
it's posted online, I know. I was curious when I got here. Which brings me to my next point. Have we made any progress with securing the $1 million from Little Ferry? I don't think my mic was off.
No, no, not to my knowledge. We have not.
Yeah, is the board going to pursue the $1 million Little Ferry goes? And don't say it's litigation, because I'm not asking you if you're litigating it or what the plan is. I'm just asking if you're going to pursue it.
I personally have no comments at the moment.
You have no comments about taxpayers' $1 million?
I have no comment about the litigation.
Not about the litigation. Are you going to pursue?
I have no comment.
So that means you're not. And don't ask the board attorney to answer for you, because there's enough. There's so much.
Please don't tell me who, and I can and can't ask Mr. DeSantis.
I just did.
But thank you for your
No, I'm
statements.
not done. I'm not done.
Thank you.
So don't constantly hide behind the board attorney, which brings me to negotiations committee.
Sometimes we need legal advice. And we're going to do that if we need to, Mr. DeSantis. You
That's
realize
fine.
that.
I got to move on to something else. I made my point. Negotiations committee, finance committee. Little Ferry owes us $1 million. And we have the Little Ferry representative on our finance and negotiations committee. Maybe it's not illegal, and it's not a question for the board attorney or the state monitor, but it certainly isn't right. Somebody hasn't paid us $1 million, and they're going to dictate our finances when they have no more than about 10% of the population of our schools. And under prior board president, chaired the negotiation committee, chaired rather the finance committee. Now on negotiations, teachers' contracts are negotiations. Little Ferry's contract is a negotiation. How can you explain to me, a reasonable person to another reasonable person, how you would put on negotiations a representative from the other district you're negotiating with? Am I nuts?
We do not negotiate with Little.
I didn't ask you.
Well, you should know better because you're.
We do negotiate with you, Barry, a contract every year. Seaman, I'm not asking you.
Because of his expertise. That's why
He
he's
doesn't
on
have
those committees.
expertise. I'm asking.
I'm
you,
sorry,
Lord
sir.
President,
We're not going to
question.
slandering the fame.
I'm not
people up here,
slandering.
Mr.
Just saying, you're saying he has
DeSantis.
specific negotiation.
He's there because of
expertise.
his expertise, and that's why he's there.
All right, so he answered. My question is, why would you do it? Why would you put the district renegotiated person on the negotiation committee?
I'm talking from the negotiation committee. Two things, okay? One, we do not negotiate Little Ferry's contract. Okay? And Nick's value is endless on that committee. Endless.
That, you may feel that way, but I feel.
Excuse me, from the gallery, we don't want to hear comments. We're trying to answer questions here.
Actually, you're not answering.
President Gibbons, if I could just, the people that are online could not hear. I think it was trustee Verselli who was answering that question.
Okay, yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Roselli.
Mr. Trustee Verselli's microphone.
Negotiations committee does not negotiate with Little Ferry on the contracts. We have been strictly with the contracts of the teachers, of the administration, of the supervisors. And the other statement I made is Mr. Feistros's expertise and his value is endless on what he brings to the table for us. I have looked to him many times for advice and he's always been solid. So I appreciate everything that he does.
Okay, that's fine. And both Mr. Vitros and Mr. Thiemann are intelligent people.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. DeSantis.
I'm not done.
Yes, your time is up,
No,
sir.
actually, I want to know then how on the
Please
finance committee.
shut off Mr. DeSantis's microphone then. We're being
Well, at
respectful
least the
to you.
public knows
You
that
have
you
5
really.
minutes, sir, like everyone else in the public. We're
All
being
right,
fair to
I'll sit
everyone.
down. My point is made.
Thank you.
I hope the new board is conscious enough that they don't put the Little Ferry representative on our finance and negotiation committees. And we do negotiate with Little Ferry. I know that for a fact.
Hey, Mr. DeSantis, was he on any negotiations or finance when you were president? No. Nothing? He was on any committees? No committees?
I guess
That's a lie.
during financial mismanagement, who was president?
Okay.
John Raftery?
Bring my daughter's name up again.
John Raftery, 54 Euclid Avenue, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey.
Good evening.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking Mr. Demikoff for a fine job done. All the people in Ridgefield Park owe you a debt, sir. You have been the only source of honesty, any clear, understandable answer we have sought. I am very disappointed in the Ridgefield Park Board of Education's attitude towards you and the solutions which you have offered them. They have not acted in the best interest of the public or our children, and I'd like to thank you, sir. Second off, Mr. Demikoff, once again, thank you. Job well done, and people appreciate you, and we're going to keep fighting.
Thank you.
Second off, I spoke with Mr. Fernandez about the $1 million last meeting, and he was going to update me as to what he found out.
No problem. No problem. So from what I was able to gather, there was a letter from Mr. Tevis sent over to the superintendent of schools at Little Ferry requesting the amount of $1 million be repaid. And I believe there was some sort of, hey, there was a negotiation for a payment plan. From there was a follow-up letter from Kerry Grabstein to the interim superintendent superintendent for the county superintendent. From there, I believe roughly November 12th, there was a response letter from Mr. Superintendent of Schools from Little Ferry to the interim county superintendent, saying, or refuting to pay or refuting that of the ruling by court Judge Bass. So in this pursuit, I want to ask this question to Mr. Demikoff, like how does the district plan on going forward with this?
Suggestion?
Yeah.
You have the president of the Little Ferry Board of Education sitting right here. Why don't we ask him?
You want to give Mr. Vitros the microphone, please?
So in June of 2021, we paid, the number escapes me, approximately $530,000.
34,000, 534.
534. And that was to resolve a debt that was going back and forth between districts for some time. It was originally at around 600,000, a little over 600,000. After some adjustments, the final number came out to be 504. That was at the time the only monies that was due. Subsequently, on June 29th, I believe, or 28th, the date, I may be off a day or two on the date. We've got a letter from Mr. Tevis on his last or second to last day that they were now requesting $1,042,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. This was never brought up prior to that date. I believe this $1 million is in response to the ruling on the previous amount, and that's where this has come up. Little Ferry had no knowledge prior to June 27th, 28th, whatever date that was. And our budget's already in for this year, and we were looking into it. And we did furnish a response back to the county in with respect to these debt monies. But prior to June 29th, this was, or 28th, this was never an issue. This 1,042,000 was never brought up. So, but every bit of the monies that were due prior to that and on or before, somewhere around the first week of June, we had paid all those monies. Is that not accurate, Mr. Demikoff?
That's correct.
Okay, so the monies that we're talking about is a new issue. So we're still looking into it, and we'll file the appropriate responses as it comes along. Okay?
Mr. Demikoff, are you satisfied with that?
Well, what Mr. Fitro said was true. We've had no response from Little Ferry about the memo that was sent in June. We're awaiting a response.
That is court-ordered money, isn't it?
It's not court-ordered money, no. It's money that, based on the decision by Judge Bass, it allows us to go and collect that money from the 18-19 school year.
And there's been no order on that?
No.
Order, no, okay. Yes.
Thank you for your comments.
I hope we have learned by my addressing Mr. Fernandez, who was not aware of the situation, Mr. Fitros, and Mr. Demikoff at once. We have had more answers here than we've had in the last 6 months. Ms. Fernandez, thank you for following through on that. Mr. Demikoff and Mr. Fitros. If the public doesn't understand now, I don't know what they don't understand.
Ronald Hidalgo?
Ronald Hidalgo, 335 Teaneck Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. I have a question. I heard there's a rumor about a board member resigning from the board. Is that true?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is that rumors about a board member resigning from the board? Did you hear anything about that? Did you guys hear anything about that? And appointing Mr. Teeman after that board member resigns?
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Thanks for that. I didn't know about it.
No, I just heard. But just in case.
Was it in the skywriting law or something?
No, it was through the grapevine. Just in case, just to let you know, the voters of Ridgefield Park voted, and they voted out Mr. Teeman. About the job creation with the board in the lame duck session. Doing that is not illegal. I believe that's unethical, and that is wrong. Why? Because you're tying up a board, making decisions that they were supposed to make in the year after. Also, I have another question for Dr. Haynes. How's your working relationship with Mr. Demikoff?
Hello. Very good. I think we met 2 or 3 times in the past 3 days. We worked through a lot of things. The question, for example, Mrs. DeSantis asked earlier about the job description posting was Mr. Demikoff's idea, which I followed through on and posted, and which answers her question. So we have a very comfortable working relationship.
So
We
you have
speak
good,
frequently.
you have a very good relationship with the state monitor.
I think that's what he just said.
Okay, that's the answer I was expecting. This is a message for the superintendent of schools. I know the superintendent of schools is going to watch the video of this board meeting. I just want to let him know that Mr. Demikoff has done a great job for Ridgefield Park. He's done an excellent job, and he has done a lot of things that the board could not achieve. Since this board has, all they have done is create lawsuits after lawsuits and throw away money like a drug dealer on a nightclub.
So inappropriate.
That's aggressive. Yeah.
What's inappropriate? Referring to us as drug dealers, board
No, I'm
members.
saying-
That's inappropriate.
I'm saying about spending money like drug dealers on a nightclub.
Who are you comparing that to?
I'm saying, I'm talking about you guys.
That's what I'm
spending-
saying.
I'm talking about you guys throwing away money and bringing us lawsuit after lawsuit. Anyways, just
You
to,
have children watching this and you're talking about drug dealers?
I know, I'm
Are
saying
you
the
in your
board,
right mind?
I'm saying the board spends money like that. I'm not talking about the board member.
Not a good example.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I just said, you want me to repeat it again? I'll repeat it. You guys spend money like a drug dealer in a nightclub.
Inappropriate.
It's
If
not
you're finished,
inappropriate.
thank
This
you
is-
very
this
much.
is This is just a comment. And that's the way you do it, and I hope you guys resign.
Again, we're not going to make slanderous and defaming comments. You could be liable for legal action. Just Sean Sadler? There are no comments from the gallery. Get ready.
Hi, good evening. Jay Sean Sadler, 139 Overpeck Avenue.
Good evening.
Good evening. So I did have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, but before I ask, as I'm sitting there and listening to the conversation, I was concerned. I heard as Mr. Rafferty was getting up, a comment, I believe it was Mr. Cathcart, a comment that said, if he mentions my daughter one more time, it sounded, I heard that comment.
We don't
Did anyone
discuss
else-
personnel matters. I mean, we don't
That's,
discuss
I didn't
personnel
say anything
matters.
about. I didn't
First
say-
off, you don't know what you're talking about. It's an issue that's being investigated, so please continue.
Okay, so what I'll say, Mr. Cathcart, is that was a very rude and disrespectful comment to say I don't know what
You
I'm
know
talking
what?
about.
I'm just getting a
I'm
little
being
tired of
respectful.
you.
Okay, so you're getting tired of me?
Please with the
I'm
comments
I'm
in
a
the
father.
gallery.
Excuse me. I'm a father, I'm a tax-paying citizen.
Well, I'm a father
and I have
and I'm a
right.
grandfather.
I'm sorry, if you would please stop interrupting me, it's very
Well,
rude
if
and
you would just
disrespectful.
stop
You can-
pontificating about nothing.
Okay, I'm
I
not,
would
I'm not
interrupt.
going to argue with you. I would ask that we please look at the video because I did hear a comment and it sounded to me like a threat. And as you said, right, children are watching this, the community is watching this. I think that that is also inappropriate. I do believe, I mean, so I know that Ron got up and he had something to say. I personally would not use that language, so I understand that.
There have been many
but I do
inappropriate
believe-
things said and done.
But I do believe that if we're interested in decorum, it goes both ways. So I do believe that it was inappropriate to make such a comment. And it is being recorded for folks to see. So I'll move on. But it's very disrespectful to Mr. Cathcart. So the question that I had, I would like to ask, when was the last time the Social Justice Committee was convened?
I believe it was April. It was last April.
Okay, so that was a very long time ago.
I agree.
We did have a June 24th, 2020, we had a resolution passed that mentioned, that listed social justice as an imperative. I would like to say that, as a citizen, as a father, as a person of color in this community, it is, very disheartening. I did hear the board say that we would be having another meeting sometime in November, and that has not happened. So to me, it feels like this is something that the board, the superintendent, with all due respect, is dropping the ball on. I know you guys have a lot going on, but we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. This is something that is imperative that we get done.
And I'd like to say, I absolutely agree with the importance of our Social Justice Committee. And I did ask that question earlier. November was canceled, but we do have to convene as soon as possible because of the importance.
Can I make a comment? Yeah, can I make a comment? Ms. Sella, I'm glad you're keeping your foot on the accelerator of this. You're one of the families that was most instrumental in this initiative being heard by the board clearly and by the rest of the community. So I appreciate you keeping your foot on the gas with this. What I will say where I think we have dropped the ball is in keeping the community informed of what's going on in the schools. From the different committees that I'm on, this stuff is being woven into the way we instruct our kids. and a lot of I forget what they're called, the circles. A lot of the initiatives that are going on, the social justice and the emotional learning initiatives, like I hear them when we talk, when the superintendent reports and when I hear teachers talk, it is going on, it is moving ahead. I hear it from my own son who's a student in the schools, but we do need to do a better job of keeping the public informed, and we did drop the ball with that.
Keeping the public not only informed, but involved.
Involved, yes,
It
yes.
should be a collaborative process.
So, so I have two things, if I might, if it's okay. If you want to stop the clock, that's fine. First of all, what Dr. Martinez is absolutely right. When we created these board goals, when we as a community created these board goals this summer and then followed them through and ratified them, and they are in the board meeting minutes, I will call you back to District Goal 1, which involves social justice and social emotional. I'm going to read it because it means a lot. And I repeat this a lot at faculty meetings, and I make sure it's at the forefront of the vision and the focus of what we do. All students known, included, cared for, and evolving in their self-awareness, identity, and agency. And I will tell you, even this past week, we did professional development yesterday, and I was privileged enough to attend a workshop where that was the focus of that workshop, and we had 25 teachers in there talking about students evolving in their self-identity and agency. And they were powerful discussions. I've been privileged to be last month in a curriculum meeting where the English Language Arts Department talked about literature and was it conforming to the culturally appropriate rubric that we've rolled out, that we ask our teachers to look at and ask themselves, does this represent our students in the literature that they look at and the curriculum that they follow? And we are working through those. What I would ask of you, because you are a force to be reckoned with, and I appreciate that, please make an appointment with me. I want you to come into my office. I want to talk to you. I need to harness your power in the community because I can't do all that, but you can. You can help me do that.
I look forward to working with everyone here towards that end. And I would also just say in closing, like I said, I had this concern as I came up about a particular board member. I believe that respect is very important, and it goes both ways from the community, also from the folks who sit in your seats. You folks are held, and rightfully so, to a high standard, as it should be. So please, if you see your colleagues are doing things that are inappropriate, in addition to addressing community members when you feel they're doing something inappropriate, it should go both ways. Thank you.
Agreed. It should go both ways. Thank you very much. Ms. Loyacono, do we have any online questions? Thank you. And on the line, please inform us if you can't hear. Also, just state your name and address so I could put it into the onto the sign-in sheet. Thank you.
Hello? I'm going to start video.
She's on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes.
Okay. Hi, good evening. I was going to say don't start my time yet, but you beat me. So I won't say what I was going to say. Okay, so our children are still masked, and there's a
name and address. I know Ms. Schmidt, but I just want to edit. Sorry.
Sorry. Jennifer Schmidt, 138 Fifth Street.
Thank you.
Okay. So our children are still masked, and there's a new, more mild variant that will be the ticket to our kids remaining masked indefinitely and to eventually force parents to vaccinate them or unenroll. That's just a reminder to you what's to come, and that the same things I said in June and July are still ringing true. And Brown University came out with a study that indicated children's school performance has seen a significant decline of about 23% since the start of in-school learning with mask mandates in place. I'm sure more studies will prove the same. Any present and future mandates are not about our safety. You may believe that masks work, the vaccine saves lives, COVID can be deadly for some, and that's all well and good, but it's not the point of the discussion about mandates. The government is not worried about your safety when air travel is banned to and from Africa while our southern border is wide open. The NJEA isn't concerned for your safety when they hold large indoor gatherings dinner gatherings, and eat at tables of 10, locking arms, posing for pictures, unmasked, while a 2-year-old sits in a private daycare with the same 15 kids each day, forced to wear a mask all day long. I could go on and on, but I want to get to the one I find most obvious. It's not about your safety when our school's rules for one-time parent volunteers require proof of vaccination and don't allow for providing a negative COVID test as an alternative. Imagine that. I can walk in vaccinated, carrying and spreading COVID, and I can walk in without anyone knowing any of my other vaccinations or contagious diseases I might be carrying. But I can't simply show a result that confirms I'm not carrying COVID? Does anyone care to explain how that makes us safer? How about silly quarantine rules that again have nothing to do with safety and everything to do with giving the vaccinated a free pass while punishing the unvaccinated? Those of you on the board already know my thoughts about this, but I'd like to add that the quarantine rules can actually discourage parents to come forward when their child is sick. I have plenty of suggestions for ways to improve the rules, ways that actually keep our children safer, happier, and don't cause more detrimental harm. But do you care to listen to those ideas? Or do you prefer to cater to your unions and the government? I think several of you know these rules do more harm than good, but you're scared. I wish you would stop being scared and at the very least start questioning the motives and take some real action to try to fix things. Lastly, on this topic, you may believe the rules you set forth are generous. We don't have to have holiday concerts or gift shops, but we are, so we should be grateful. While I am extremely grateful for anything that resembles normalcy for my child, I can have gratitude and still question the reasoning behind particular rules. I can still wish to discuss it and understand where the rules are coming from. I don't have to like the rule, but I want you all to understand that it goes far beyond not liking a rule. It's a rule that infringes on our rights to medical privacy for no real purpose. Let me ask, if I'm medically exempt from receiving the vaccine, am I exempt from the rules? Or am I just banned from volunteering? Am I to disclose my medical condition to the authorities here? The authorities that work for me? May I see all your vaccine cards and know your exemptions and know your medical conditions that you may have? I mean, I just want to keep your children safe, as you refer to them. I hope you all hear how that sounds. I can't be grateful for nonsensical rules that are not mandated by the state and do not actually serve to keep my children and other people's children any safer. Let me ask you this. If I'm vaccinated and I go out to restaurants, concerts, sporting events, I never wash my hands, I never take vitamins, and I don't take any other safety precautions, am I better than the unvaccinated parent who never leaves the house, stays home taking care of her children, washes hands, and so on? We talk about inclusion and equity these days, and then we discriminate based on shot or no shot. How about booster or no booster? And you can all laugh at that, but if the pattern continues, what I predict today becomes the reality next month. As much as I love to be right, I sure hope I'm wrong this time. Until any of you are ready to call this what it is, though, it doesn't ever go away. It's time to let parents do the parenting and make the rules that keep their children safe. And it's time for the schools to focus solely on education. I think parents and teachers alike are growing so tired of the way things are. Do you think the governor is losing sleep over it like many of us are? Tonight, there's a peaceful protest happening outside the building. Parents are leaving shoes outside to represent their opposition to a COVID-19 vaccine mandates for the students. Some had accompanying notes, which I have given to you. And since I'm fully transparent, I will tell you that not every shoe represents a student that attends our schools, but out of the 90 shoes outside, about 40 of them do represent students that attend our schools. The rest are concerned citizens and parents and grandparents in our district. To these parents, although it doesn't seem like a lot to you, it might not seem like a big number, to these parents that'll be backed into a corner and forced to choose public education over their child's health and safety and freedom over their bodies, it means everything. Please don't cut me off because I'm right there. I'm at the end.
Okay.
Please don't remove the shoes, as I'll personally be collecting them and donating them to a good cause. And please think about what other parents and I say tonight and have written to you. If you want to protect our children, perhaps respect the decisions them and their parents make about their own health. Thank you, and I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Loyocono, thank you.
No answer?
If you could please state your name and address. Good evening, ma'am. You're on mute.
Nope. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Marley Gonzalez, 225 Euclid Avenue.
Good evening.
Good evening. I have a couple of thoughts about things that were, I had raised my hand during the on-agenda items, but I guess I wasn't seen. The remote learning, when Nurse Aguilar said that, we should be mindful and keep our kids home if they're exhibiting symptoms. I want to say that I have done that with my daughter, and I will continue to do so. However, I am concerned that remote learning isn't being offered, and that because I'm being a good parent and a concerned citizen, I would keep her home under situations where I normally wouldn't. If she were to wake up tomorrow with a sore throat, I would keep her home. I normally wouldn't do that. And I think it is unfair that remote learning in that situation isn't offered. There's no reason why she should miss class when we now have the technology, when she doesn't need to. And Google Classroom, frankly, is not sufficient. She's an 8th grader. I don't want her to fall behind. She has honors classes. It's important. I take her education seriously. Obviously, I take the other students' education seriously too, but she should not be penalized because some people believe that by allowing kids to go remote a few days might spur more children to stay home. That's just ridiculous, and that needs to change. And if that doesn't change, I believe there will be parents who will be sending their kids to school ill and jeopardizing all of our students. So that's just, for future thought. The other thing, and I forget who mentioned this, but it was stated that we have transportation contracts or agreements with other districts that don't generate income. And I'm just wondering how that makes any sense whatsoever. Why would we use our resources, our time, our drivers to enter into any agreements that don't generate income? I mean, we're taxpayers, right? So we're spending our taxes for Leonia, and I forget what the other district was. I don't know if anyone can answer that, but that just didn't make any sense to me.
Is that true? Is that accurate?
Yes, I just wanted to say that when it comes to Little Ferry and Leonia, these are transportation agreements that go both ways. So they assist us and we assist them. And that's why there is no fee for any of the districts, because it's a joint agreement and we transport some of their students and they transport some of our students.
Where did they, I'm sorry, thank you for that, but where do they transport our students to?
Some of the out of district schools, just because we're very short of drivers, so it makes a lot of sense to work with the other districts when it comes to transporting students out of district.
Thank you, but I don't understand. So where is it that those districts are bringing our children to?
Yeah, exactly. If we already have students going to that school, it makes sense to take other students from the other districts and vice versa.
Okay, I guess I'm missing something because I don't understand it, but is it equitable? Are we putting in as much money or, as we're getting?
I don't really know that, and I think we really need to do a deep dive into transportation and look at the costs and the overtime and really do a deep dive into it. I can't answer that off the top of my head, but it is something I plan on working on and looking at as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
And that will conclude our comments off agenda items. We don't have any unfinished business. And I'm going to take a brief recess to speak to Mrs. Wright for a couple of minutes. So we'll be right back. Thank you. Chris. Yes.
Right, that's- right, exactly. Right. But I don't know, I would say, I think Jim did something like that, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was told. Yeah, so. Yeah, you do, yeah. Right, that's.
Okay, no, I'm just.
Yeah.
just wondering. Correct. No, no. Carrie, what did you find out?
You want to break down those? Yeah, I do have a spreadsheet on it. Yeah, I have it broken down by, yeah, no problem. Okay, no problem. I just have to get that information. Oh, good, I'm glad.
Most of the times that I know.
Right, exactly. Right. Right.
Your mic's around.
Oh. Well,
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, sir. We're going to start the meeting now.
John, just watch
Oh,
your wire. John, just watch your feed, please.
Okay, under new business, we have two agenda attachments. If Mr. Fernandez, Trustee Fernandez could please pass move FI 156.
Thank you, President Gibbons. I'd like to move FI 156.
I second.
Trustee Rodriguez.
No. Oh, Ms. Grabstein, is there sort of a timeline regarding the repairs that are need to be done for this one? Okay, well, what do you think will be the timeline for the repairs for the 156? Anything? Yes, ma'am.
Is it on now? Yes. I don't know exactly what the timing will be for the repairs, but we're waiting to get the payments in, and this is approving those payments. But there's carpeting that has to be repaired. I have the attachments with everything that has to be done. We don't have a timeline for that, but we plan on working on that over the next few months.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm going to take the vote. Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, Mr. Gomes, Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Thiemann,
Yes.
Mr. Versilli,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
and President Gibbons.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought it was supposed to be posted. I will read it to you. Ooh,
Please.
yeah, all right. Basically, what it is we had a lot of losses because of Hurricane Ida. And we submitted insurance claims for some of the losses. There were carpeting and supplies and things. And we're getting reimbursed by the insurance company in the amount of $95,000 for some damage to the cafeteria in Roosevelt and for various things in Lincoln School that were destroyed with water damage. So basically, it's just an insurance claim, and we found out that we'll be reimbursed $95,000. So this is just accepting the sworn statements of loss. You're welcome.
Thank you. And next, I'd like to move up P 145, and Mrs. Wright is going to read that for us. Could I have a
First,
motion?
I think I should recuse myself from here, right? No,
I'd like to make a motion P 145. Could I have a second? Second, Trustee Gomes.
Are we reading this one?
Terry's going to read it.
President Gibbons, I have it in front of me.
Thank you.
Whereas the board seeks to protect and maintain the integrity of its operations, and whereas there is evidence to suggest that employee number 4018 has taken actions that undermine board operations and may be violative of the School Ethics Act, and where the board views these actions as violative of the School Ethics Act, in particular NJSA 18A 12-24B, And whereas employee number 418's apparent violation of the School Ethics Act warrants a complaint to be filed against him or her with the School Ethics Commission, the board authorizes and directs the board president to facilitate the filing of an appropriate complaint to be executed by the board president on behalf of the board. And whereas should the School Ethics Commission determine that the allegations are true, employee number 4018 shall be subject to, and the board shall effectuate any penalty deemed appropriate at that time by the board, in addition to any recommended by the School Ethics Commission and authorized by the Commissioner of Education. Now therefore be it resolved that this board would not make an ultimate decision as to guilt or innocence, but recognizes that the appropriate place for such a determination is the School Ethics Commission, which can weigh the evidence and testimony from employee number 4018 and others. And be it further resolved that the board authorizes and directs the board president with the assistance of board counsel to prepare, file, and prosecute a complaint against employee number 4018 as set forth herein. That's the end of the resolution, President Gibbons.
Thank you. Take a vote.
Yeah.
If I may, President Gibbons, I just want to make sure that the board and the public is aware that Dr. Bender received a Rice notice and requested that any discussion regarding her employment be held in public. So the board is permitted to have a discussion about Dr. Bender at this point.
Thank you, Gary.
Take a vote.
Yes, we're gonna answer questions.
Okay, we need a motion.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. I'd like to recommend that we table this. I believe that there are several pertinent factual errors in this document as I've read it. I think it's too broad. I believe that we should take this back and deliberate further about the merits of some of the things said there. There are inaccuracies there that I know because I witnessed. I was there. There are presumptions to this document that I don't think are factually correct. And I worry about the outcome of this ethics complaint. I'd also like to say that I was clear about my vote in June, was it? To suspend Dr. Bender. I was clear in my vote against suspending Dr. Bender in June. And with regards to this, I think that it's overreach, and I think it's a mistake. And ultimately, regardless of what comes of this process, I don't believe this is good for the district. I've said before, I'm not a friend of hers. We don't have a relationship before the day I started on this board. I'm here for the district, and after reading all the details and sitting for this, my kids can attest to for hours over every single line in this document, I don't think this is a good idea.
Thank you, Dr. Martinez. And again, as Mrs. Wright stated, we're not going to be the ones. The ethics board will be the ones to say that. And we're going to go ahead and take a vote now unless there are any more questions.
Chris, correction, we're taking a vote to do something. I'm saying that what we're taking a
Yes.
vote on, I don't think
If-
that's a good
if-
idea.
if It goes through? Yes.
Okay, we need a motion.
First. Second?
Second.
Trustee Thiemann?
Okay, President Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, Mr. Gomes, Dr. Martinez,
I'm a no.
Mrs. O'Neill,
I'm an abstention.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
I'm an abstention.
Mr. Thiemann,
Yes.
Mr. Verselli,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart. Oh, he's an abstention. Okay. 4, 5, 6. Yeah, the resolution passes.
Thank you. I have a statement I'm going to read. And please, if we could have silence in the gallery, I'd appreciate it. I'm reading a statement as the board president. As most of you are aware, Angela Bender filed a lawsuit against the board, Little Ferry board, and several individual board members, While there have been numerous inquiries about this lawsuit, on the advice of counsel, the board will be unable to answer questions. This inability to respond has been incredibly frustrating for the board, as I'm sure it has been to the public. However, after numerous discussions with counsel, it has been agreed that the board may provide a brief statement, though on advice of counsel, the board will be limited to its ability to respond to questions regarding the pending litigation or any ongoing investigations. As such, the board will not entertain any questions on this topic. Most of the questions we have received surrounded the board's decision to place Angela Bender on paid administrative leave. The lawsuit alleges that the board had no legitimate basis to place Angela Bender on leave, and instead the board did so in retaliation for actions relative to her decision to curtail the football season during COVID and because of her gender. In its answer to the complaint, the board indicated that none of these allegations were accurate and cannot be further from the truth. The decision to place her on leave was not an easy one, nor one the board took lightly. However, based on the information the board had at the time, it felt compelled to investigate the information that came to its attention. The origin of the investigation came from 2 lawsuits filed against the district, the allegations of which are set forth in the pleadings, which are public documents. These lawsuits are similar in some respects, as they both allege Angela Bender retaliated against the individual employees for complaining about them being harassed in the workplace. In both lawsuits, the employees claim Angela Bender demoted them or had their positions eliminated after they complained about workplace harassment. The board wants to be clear. These are just allegations. Nothing has been proven, and the board denies any unlawful conduct occurred. However, as it does with all lawsuits, the board takes each complaint seriously. In order to defend the district and protect all involved employees, the board will often conduct investigations to determine the facts surrounding each situation. There was one area in particular where the board felt further investigation was required. In one of the lawsuits, it was alleged that Angela Bender retaliated against the individual because the harassment complaint was made against an individual whom Angela Bender had a close personal relationship with. The board will not comment on allegations of unlawful conduct alleged by this employee as it relates to the public allegations raised by Angela Bender in her lawsuit. The board was not aware of any such close personal relationship between Angela Bender and a subordinate. Angela Bender did not place the board on notice of this relationship. While not clear at the time, the board had concerns there might be other possible issues related to this potential conflict of interest that exposed the board to liability. The board determined that the best course of action would be to further investigate these issues. The investigation remains ongoing, and the results of that investigation will likely impact how the board proceeds. However, this is an ongoing investigation. Angela Bender remains on administrative leave and continues to receive her salary and benefits. While we understand this process is frustrating to all involved, it is one that is necessary in order to ensure our district, the work environment, and all involved employees are adequately protected. I hope this statement helped provide a background and clarity on the board's difficult decision. Unfortunately, on the advice of counsel, I am unable to respond to specific questions due to the pending litigation. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
I think I got one. Let me see and make sure. The 3 studies? I got it.